Hi, this is James, and for today's video, I'm doing a review. I normally don't do reviews. If you see my video on music critics, I don't really believe they hold the same value that they used to have, or really are as essential as they used to be. I think now the sort of like curated taste can come from various outlets. However, I wanted to make this because the album just came out, and I've listened to it twice. I've listened to singles a lot, but Music, Fashion, and Film by Charli xcx is out, and I was a big fan of Brat, and that's part of why I wanted to make this. Is I think it's a really interesting benchmark, right? Because Brat was a benchmark. This is a shift for Charli's career. I mean, it's a benchmark for her career. It's not a benchmark for all of music in the way that Brat was. Brat was a sort of like a showstopper, I guess. Like it changed things. When CNN does their whole like decades documentary thing, as they will eventually do for the 2020s, there will probably be an episode about music where there's 10 minutes devoted to Brat and Brat Summer and what that meant, and the tour and the moment and the remixes and all that, and the TikTok dance and whatever. Now, if you ask the average music fan what was the last Charli xcx project, they're either going to say Brat or the Brat remixes, but really it's the moment. And if you've watched the moment, you know what I mean when I say it is very much focused on the idea of moving on. Moving on. What does it mean to move on? What does it mean to constantly be moving and artistically branch off, you know? Even from the beginning of this album, rock music, the whole on to the next is a theme. And it's constantly being mentioned throughout is the idea of like everything's temporary, you know, you have to move on. I think it's an interesting perspective for Charli to go with, and for this to be the most prominent theme openly in the project, because it kind of seems like a self-imposed thing. I think as artists, you should be focused on yourself, right? Like that is kind of the point. It's how you make something good, and Charli's very good at that. That being said, you don't have to defend yourself. And I feel like that's something Charli finds herself doing on this project a lot. It's a lot of defending herself because she feels like she has to, or an explanation of why she acted a certain way. So to begin, the first two tracks to me are the worst songs on the album, which is a great thing because they aren't horrible, and when you start okay and they're the worst, that's a really good sign. Rock music to me isn't glitchy enough, kind of boring, didn't really do anything for me when it came out, hasn't grown on me since. Spring Summer 26 isn't edgy enough. It's not having like a punk energy that I think she wants it to have. I can see it being better live. I think the other theme that goes throughout this, and it's mentioned on Spring Summer 26 most prominently, is the art won't save you thing. Art obviously won't save anyone. You have to save yourself. And I don't think Charli's unaware of this. I mean, I think it's like repeated throughout the album, but I'm surprised that to her, she held it in that light for as long as she did, or that being the implication. I think with her music in particular, of course it's not saving. She knows there's so much around it. It's the ecosystem of it all. And that's something that she's very good at understanding. That being said, you don't have to clarify in the song like what that means. It kind of feels like in Spring Summer 26 and some of these other ones, there's this avoidance of a humanistic angle despite it coming from a humanistic standpoint. Card Decline is the third song. It shifts everything. This is like by far to me like the encapsulation of the album. Card Decline is amazing. It's sonically great. I love the second part. And the way that it encapsulates the album is the narrative in that, and I know it's like it's not intentional, but it's like a biblical allusion or like an Old Testament thing, Ecclesiastes. And in that, there's like a guy who kind of has tried a lot of different things, and he's found no contentment or validity or true like feelings of I guess like satisfaction from any of the earthly things around him. And even in pursuing God, doesn't really feel it. And it's just sort of a cynical self-doubt, doubt in everything around them that is pervasive through that, and also through this album, but specifically that song. And I think it's interesting that in a time like now, we're seeing this sort of like almost anti-materialistic angle and not materialism as in the literal like accumulation of physical items, although that is part of the song. It's the understanding of everything as literally what it is and only in its physical sense. And also the admission that it's like there really isn't a lot of satisfaction even in the higher levels. Camera to me is a great song for Charli. I think this is it reminds me of Brad a little bit. It shows a reverence for film and a vulnerability, you know. Talk about inspiration. That's another common theme on this project. You know, I think Charli is inspired, and I think it's a valid point she's making about, you know, like questioning whether or not she's earnestly interested in acting and being in film and what that means for her. Next song, 2007, is fun. It's fun enough to where I forgive the too minimal production of it. And short songs are big. I think short songs are back. I think it's fun for pop music to be short. Express your idea fast, get it over with, and be concise. This is good for Charli. I like when she's concise. I think in an album like this, Brat was great for many reasons, but one of the reasons the production would allow for a long bridge, take an Everything's Romantic, a long bridge that, you know, feeds the song's purpose. Whereas something like this, it's short, concise, it gets to the point, good. I'm Afraid to me is this, it's meant to be, I think, like the emotional crux of a lot of it. To me, it felt like a discussion of some of the stuff she already talked about on Brett. I wasn't that interested by it. I think one of the most telling parts of this is she refers to things as too complicated to really accurately convey. And I find this to be a little like obnoxious because it's like, I don't like how meta that is. I think it's meta in a way that's, you shouldn't address the audience in this way, or the listeners, I should say, because you should be making this for yourself. Make it difficult. Talk about why it's difficult and talk about what that means to you, and not just like, oh, like the difficulty of it is feeding my inspiration, makes making art easier. It's like, no, like, well, that can be true. It's like you can make art under any circumstances. Talk about why you feel that, And that would feel more interesting than just being like, it's too complicated for me to express, but it's really bad. This is the funniest switch up on the album because it goes straight from that to Yeah, which to me is fun. And it's what I like about the less deep side of Charli xcx. I like when she's deep in an earnest way. But Yeah is like the ultimate on this album, just like having fun, good song, still like interesting. And then Wink Wink was the best single to me. It's provocative in the best way. It reminds me of part of why I love Prince, the sort of fun sensuality of it all. And this to me was a great balance of being deep and nuanced as well as being fun, high energy. And that's really where I think Charli is in like her sweet spot of just like making music that no one else can do right now in the way that she's doing it, in a unique, original, and just amazing way. I can see the song being one of my more listened to this year. I really, really, really enjoyed it, and I'll probably continue to enjoy it. And then we have Persona, which to me is another like bratty thing. I don't think she could have made it in that time because the tone has a sort of like self-empowerment and self-understanding I don't think she might have written about in Brat. But to me, this is a really, really good song. This is humbling and in a good way. This is classic bitterness and expressed in a way that I really like because it's understanding like I hate this person for how I see them as myself, and recognizing those qualities is an interesting thing. And I like this. This is unique. This to me is more interesting and nuanced than something like I'm Afraid. Magic Metal Montana is about A.G. Cook. She addresses A.G. Cook. It's cool, right? Like, producer getting love. I think it's interesting because this album is very much feels like a band because it's like the same three people that worked on every song: Charli, A.G. Cook, and this main producer I'm forgetting the name of. And this reminds me of the way George is talked about on Brat, where it's like he'll be producing a song that references him, and it's like, what's going on? It's very meta. It's interesting. It's not my favorite, but yeah, I think it brings up a discussion that Charli has early in the album lyrically, which is about like how she's like, I'd be nothing without this person. She's always saying like, I'd be nothing, I wouldn't be this, I wouldn't be that. When it's like, I feel like there's almost no way. Like I almost have to suspend my disbelief to a ridiculous point in this where it's like, okay, A.G. Cook hasn't always been working with Charli. Maybe I'm wrong. You know, I don't know them. I don't want to be parasocial about this. But this song feels very parasocial in the sense of referring to someone by name, describing their relationship so openly. It feels very intimate in a certain sort of way. And I don't know. Like, this to me is a very insecure song, because it's like giving this much credit to someone, it's almost like unbelievable. Like what this person has done for Charli. Like, I almost don't believe it. And then the last track to me was weak. I know it's like the songs where Charli's trying to be her deepest is when I dislike it, because I don't think she has to try so hard to be deep. I feel like there's a natural profundity the way she talks about certain things, but when she's like, everything's temporary, like no one lasts forever, it's like everyone knows like this isn't like a secret. And the whole, like, you know, framing this as a sort of existential thing to me is kind of like reductive, and it's very strange, because it's like talking about like, oh, you're like aware that this is like the peak of everything going on. It's like, yeah, like why wouldn't you be? And it's something that everyone has to grapple with, but she doesn't grapple with it in the song. She's just like stating it. She's just like, this is what's happening. I came to this realization. There's no grappling in the song. And then David Cronenberg tells a very interesting story. I actually like Cronenberg a lot, and I'm glad he was included. I actually like the whole repeating the last line at the end. That to me is like, I mean, it's the Beatles thing. It's a great moment. I'm glad she did that, because it sort of symbolizes the aesthetics of this album, and you know, it really like dials it down for this last song. However, I just couldn't get over lyrically some of it. And I guess to like kind of close this off, I see this staying in my rotation longer than Brat. I feel like some of this review was very negative. That being said, it doesn't mean I'm not going to return to a lot of these songs. The best's when there's a balance. That's why Brat was so good. It was nonstop, the whole album. Everything was nonstop, and when it was fun, it was fun. When it was deep, it was deep. Whereas with this, it was weird. It was sparing at times. It was minimal at times where it felt a little bit awkward, and not necessarily bad awkward, but I don't know. Songs like Card Decline are going to stay in my rotation for a long time. I think it's interesting. I think it's something worth like, you know, like really mulling over. And I guess like the main point I want to make with this in terms of the critical side of it is ego is a common thing to grapple with. Ego is one of the most common, like egotism, or, you know, it's something like everyone falls into at times. We know what she means when she talks about it lyrically, and I wish she would delve deeper into it. Offer a perspective that's unique, or tell a story about it that's unique, instead of just addressing it and just saying, this is this is this. It's like, no, like, why is this negative in your life? Like, talk about more than just I'm experiencing self-doubt. It's like, what is the culmination of that? And I don't know, maybe it's a degree of vulnerability I'm asking for that's unreasonable, but at the same time, I think it would benefit and enrich the work a lot, because that's something that we saw on Brat that was so great. And again, this album has a lot of stuff going for it, and I hate to rate things. I don't really believe in like concrete ratings, because it's like how I feel about it literally the day it came out. This video is either going to come out the day it came out or the day after, but like, this to me is like a B+ album if Brat is an A+. You know, assuming Brat's an A+, this is a B+. Assuming Brat's a 10, this is like a 8.5. This is not a bad album by any means. I wanted to make this before. I haven't opened Twitter since it came out. I haven't looked at any review. I haven't looked at any articles about it. I really wanted this to be my earnest thoughts on it off of first or 2 listens. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out my music. New stuff on the way. It's way better than the old stuff.